Hello everybody. So I'm going to try to make this a somewhat shorter video than the others. But this video correlates with the next section in my ebook titled Mind Over Mind, Mind Over Body, Mind Over Matter. So in this video, I would like to just illustrate the power that the mind has. And once you have a firm understanding of its power, and you start to actually grow a little bit of belief as to how powerful the mind really is, the more effective meditation becomes, the more effective beliefs and auto-suggestions become. So I would like to kind of start off just asking everybody to be a little open-minded as I go through some of this stuff. Some of it may sound a little kind of phenomenal, but I assure you these stories are quite real and are very important. They're kind of faith-promoting stories to kind of help you get a little bit of, oil in your gears of belief, so that as you start to understand and believe the power of the mind, you can start to literally begin to gain more and more control over your own mind, your thoughts, the way you think, your actions, your body, how your body functions, all the way down to the functions of your internal organs. So I would like to start with a quote by Arthur C. Clarke. I love this quote. I think it really kind of gives a good idea of, from a scientific perspective, of how important belief is and how important it is to keep an open mind. So he says, "It is really quite amazing by what margins competent but conservative scientists and engineers can miss the mark when they start with the preconceived idea that what they are investigating is impossible. When this happens, the most well-informed men become blinded by their prejudices and are unable to see what lies directly ahead of them." Arthur C. Clarke. So beliefs are so important. Excuse me. When you have a belief, it creates a filter in your mind that literally filters your perception of reality and affects how you respond to the stimuli in the world around you. Okay, so the more control you have over your mind, the more control you will have over your body. And the more control you have over your mind and body, the more control you will have over the world around you. This is a vital concept in the House of Waking Spirits Addiction Recovery Program. Okay, so first, you need to be open-minded and you need to believe that the mind is all-powerful. I know that sounds kind of, a little mystical there, but I'm going to illustrate to you in a couple of stories here why. So let's start off with the placebo effect. Now, the placebo effect is a really good illustration of the power of the mind. Somebody takes a sugar pill, believing it cures whatever, they ingest it, and half hour later, the symptoms are completely gone. This is because they had so much belief and faith in that pill that it would cure their condition, that after they ingested it, their symptoms disappeared because their mind believed it, which affected the body, which affected their symptoms and got rid of them. Now, in the New York Times, there was an article several years ago on multiple personality disorder. There's a Dr. Frank Putnam, and he had investigated several people with multiple personality disorder. The interesting thing is it ended up being quite common that several people with this disorder would actually, their prescription, their eyeglass prescription would literally change every time they changed into a new personality. So this kind of shows how much effect the mind and belief has on the body. Like, when they changed personalities, their mental beliefs changed, and they believed that they had better vision, and their actual vision changed. So several people with this disorder would carry around like 5 or 6 pairs of eyeglasses for each personality, because their vision would change so drastically that they would really need a different prescription for each personality. Another thing that he found was that some of these people would have personalities with diabetes. Now, because diabetes happens to be one of those things that, is mostly considered incurable, this was kind of fascinating. They would draw the blood of the personality with diabetes, and sure enough, the person has diabetes. It's not, there was no question there. They change personality, and the diabetes disappears, because in the new personality, they believe so much that they didn't have diabetes that affected their body in that manner. When they were in the personality with diabetes, of course, their body became diabetic, and because of the belief system that personality had, that person had diabetes. There's another fun little story that was, mid-1900s. There was a Dr. Albert Mason and a Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore was working on a young man, a patient that had what appeared to be warts up and down his arms. Now, Dr. Moore had tried everything. He tried doing skin grafts, he tried medications, and to no avail. Dr. Mason who had done some previous work getting rid of warts with hypnosis, said, well, why don't you let me give it a shot? I've done this with hypnosis, I'll give this kid a shot. So he put the kid under hypnosis, and he said, your right arm, I think he just picked the right arm. He said, your right arm will clear up within the next week. Well, 1 week later, the kid returns, and his right arm is completely gone. There's no wart, there's not even a blemish. So Dr. Mason runs over to to surgery where Dr. Moore was performing surgery, and he held the kid's arms up in front of the window and pointed at him, and apparently Dr. Moore's face just dropped, like, in disbelief, and he came out, and Dr. Mason said, see, I told you I could get rid of the warts with hypnosis. And Dr. Moore was in such disbelief, he said, dude, these aren't warts, this is congenital ichthyosis. It's not curable. It's a disease that this kid was born with. So there's another really good example of how powerful the mind and belief is. The kid actually believed, through hypnosis, he was fed the suggestion that his arm would clear up within the next week, and in fact it did. So, I hope these stories this is a little bit of a faith-promoting kind of a video, so I hope these stories illustrate the actual power of the mind. The mind controls hormones, it controls electrical signals, is connected to everything in the body through the nervous system. And it has way more control over the body than what most people realize. It all starts with the mind. The mind, once you have a sufficient amount of control of the mind itself, you have almost total control over your entire body. There are meditation practitioners that can go into meditation and not eat, not drink, just sit for weeks on end. Their heart rate will slow to the point where they would be considered clinically dead. And how much control is that? Where you can literally control the amount of nutrients that is delivered, you control your heart rate, you would be considered clinically dead if somebody had examined you. That's some pretty intense control. Along with that, you can get to the point where you can feel and understand each organ, what they're doing at that moment. You can interact with each organ, you can interact with each muscle. You can get to the point to where you can literally, you can release different hormones, you can have control over your endocrine system. The amount of control that you can have if you teach yourself and learn how to do it over your body is pretty phenomenal. And this concept is really important in addiction recovery because, especially with when you think about shooting up or smoking a rock or whatever, your mind begins to race, you start releasing hormones, you get anxious, your heart starts beating. When you can control your mind and you can stop that from happening before it even starts, then you don't get that addiction cycle, that feeling that you need to go use is nipped at the bud. And so this is really, really important. I hope this kind of illustrates really well how powerful the mind really is. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section down below. And I will see you in the next video on Mind Over Matter. Thanks, bye.